Very eager to listen from and happy to invite on stage a specialist in designing macroeconomic models and investment strategies, a passionate teacher and partner at Alpha Capital, Mukesh Jindal.
So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My topic is disruption. And a few minutes back, my topic got disrupted. Radhika spoke exactly on that. So my whole presentation has been disrupted by Radhika. So you can imagine how dangerous and deadly the disruption is. In fact, my topic was, something else. It was partnership, in advisory practices. And then I spoke to Dilshad, and I told, let's change the topic, because the word of the moment is disruption. The disruption is all around, as Radhika said. Elon Musk disrupting everything. Jeff Bezos, Google, it's all disruption happening. So it's very important that we understand that how disruption is going to change our life, how disruption is going to change financial advisory, and is it a threat or opportunity? So what I have done is that, in the last 1 year, in fact, this has been giving me sleepless night. And I'm sure as advisors, everyone has been struggling with this, or you have been thinking about this. Because there are a lot of changes happening. You have direct plans. You have websites now like Zerodha, ET Money, Paisa Bazaar, giving mutual funds, SIP for free, on which we earn. You have, indexes beating the active fund managers, or the active fund managers are not even able to beat the benchmarks. The ETFs are becoming bigger. So there is a question mark. Will mutual funds stay relevant? If active fund managers are not able to beat the index, then what is going to happen? How are we going to earn? So I did some homework on this. And what I've tried to do is I've tried to understand how does this disruption really works? What are my expectations, or what do I foresee from the wealth management? And as an advisor, we have been making a lot of changes in our business model. And as Radhika said, that it's important to adopt new changes, so we did that. So what I will be doing is I'll be sharing my experiences with you, that where we got success and where we got the failure, right? So quickly I'll tell you about disruptions. So what is common in these, companies? Anyone? All of them don't exist, got disrupted. Very common names, right? There are many more companies. The list is very big. As per research, in the last 15 years, 52% of the Fortune 500 companies have been, disrupted, have gone to extinct. And I think this is going to happen very fast. The businesses which you think are not going to get disrupted are going to get disrupted, okay? And if you ask me, there won't be anything which will not be disrupted. The doctors, the lawyers, everyone will be disrupted. Some of the industries, if you look around, we all know the bookstores got disrupted with Amazon. Taxis, we have Uber, music, Spotify, hotels, Airbnb, Google, Tesla, Square, everyone are disrupting. And you may keep waiting and watching, but the disruptions are coming to us as well. So where is digital disruption? It's everywhere. And I've been reading some books. You have 3D printers coming. In the next 10 years, you won't have any manufacturing plants. The whole of the manufacturing is going to get disrupted. Okay, the artificial intelligence is going to disrupt everything. Okay, so let's see. Now, based on some homework, some analysis, what I found is that it's important to understand that what's the cycle of disruption. Disruption is one word. If you look at this curve, it starts with digitization and it goes all the way to democratize. It's important to understand this. So that's the cycle, okay? I'll use an example of Kodak. We all know that Kodak got bankrupt. They used to make cameras, print rolls. In 1996, the company was worth $30 billion, okay? And they had an employee strength of 150,000. So it's all zero now. So the digitization first happened. Can anyone guess when did the first digital camera came? 70s? Anyone else? 80s? So Harsh is right. It was first made in the year 1976, okay, by a gentleman called Steven Sampson. And the guy was working in Kodak itself. So the first model which he made, a camera, it was 10 kgs, okay, and a size of a huge printer. And the quality was 0.01 megapixel. So he was in the research team of Kodak. He presented the model, and the team, asked him that how long do you think that it will become feasible? So he said maybe 30, 40 years, and Kodak dropped it. They said, no, it's useless, It will take a lot of time. So Kodak digitalization happened, or the camera got digitized in 1976. But it was only after 15 years that it became relevant. So 1976 digitized, the phase from disruptive to digitized is deceptive. This is when an exponential growth in the technology is happening. It is not visible to you. It follows something called Moore's law. You know Moore's law? The technology, as per Moore's law, technology grows or doubles every year, and the cost halves every year. So what was happening is that in the camera, the megapixels, it was increasing every year. The price was coming down. And somewhere in 90s, it became so relevant that the camera size came down and the price came down. And the disruption started happening. Okay? So you had digital cameras everywhere. The next is demonetization. It's not the demonetization of India. The demonetization, how does that work, is that a product becomes free. Okay? So you did not have any print rolls, you did not need any print rolls, it was all digitalized. There was no price for that. So that's a phase when the product becomes free of charge. There's no cost to it. Okay? So you use various services right now, your social network, the mails, they're free in some form, right? The next is dematerialization. That is when the product in itself becomes irrelevant. So today, you don't get cameras, you have smartphones having cameras. The product has become irrelevant, right? And the last is it get democratized. When the price of that particular product comes down so much that it's available to everyone. In 1970s, 80s, camera used to be luxury. Very few people used to afford. Now it's available with everyone, right? So if we look at this, if we compare this with the mutual fund industry or the wealth industry, I think digitized happened somewhere, 10 years back when the online transactions happening. The banks were providing it, 15 years, the HDFC, ICICI was happening. The disruption started happening when the NSE and BSE started offering the technology in the background, and everyone adopted it, the Zerodha, the Paisa Bazaar. And I think we are somewhere in the demonetization phase right now. It's going to become free. So you can now buy mutual funds from so many platforms free of cost. Everyone agree on this? So we are in the demonetization phase, but it's also going to go to dematerialize and democratize. I'm going to tell you what exactly does that mean. Is it interesting? Yes. So the question is, what about us? Okay, we understand that the disruption is happening. What is going to happen to the financial advisors? So I'll just give you some perspective. I'm going to present you 3-4 slides that how the wealth management industry is evolving. You must have seen this slide in a lot of places. This shows that the penetration of mutual funds, when I started my career in 2005, in India, the mutual fund as a percentage of GDP was maybe 3-4%, and it has been growing at 11%. And in US, it's around 100%. So, the story was very strong. You guys have seen this? And so the mutual fund penetration, I personally feel there's a lot of scope. The awareness is less, and the investments are going to happen. And the technology is going to pick up on this. But this chart also shows that US is in the advanced curve. If we look at the US market, it will give us a signal what is going to happen in the India. So I got some slides from the US. Now this chart, I'll try to simplify it. It shows, the household holding in the share market in the form of shares and mutual funds or funds. So the green line shows the US stocks and how that has been changing to the funds. So earlier the investors used to invest in 50s, 60s directly in stock market, and then mutual funds became popular and the story was going on. Even in US, the story was very attractive. But this chart is something which you should think about. So this started in 2009 when the ETF became very popular, okay? And this shows a cumulative outflow or inflow in particular asset class. This shows the green one, the actively managed mutual fund, has been having net outflow since 2009. There is an outflow of $1.3 trillion. And the money is all going where? It's going to the ETF and the index funds. So you can imagine, this is going to happen in India also. Next 10 years down the line, mutual fund will get dematerialized. There won't be mutual funds. It will be all ETF. In US market, the active fund managers are not being able to beat the S&P 500. I think that is going to happen in India also, and the alpha will die down. How many of you agree on this? So is it a reason for worry? No? Does everyone think like that? Or does it worry someone? It worries a lot to me. It worries a lot to me because, we have been earning a lot from mutual funds. And so it's changing, okay? But, as you said, there's a good news. As Radhika also said, there's an opportunity in this. So let's look at the opportunity. If you look at the US market, the number of RIAs has been going up from 2015. It has been continuously going up. Despite ETFs becoming very big, despite products becoming irrelevant, and the assets under management of RIAs is going up. So how is this happening? Okay, so the reason for that is investment products are not cameras. When a camera gets digitalized, the experience is same. Right? Earlier, the photograph which was being clicked from an old camera and digitalized, the output is same. But in investments, when you make an investment, you don't know what the investor will get as a return. It depends on many things. It depends on holding, the timing, and various stuff. So the product may have become irrelevant, but the user return or the investor returns are different, right? So this was a research done by Axis Mutual Fund. And this shows that what is the return of investor and what the fund gave. So if you look at the equity funds, fund gave in 15 years a return of 19% CAGR, and investor only made 12.5. Why did he make less? Why did he make less? Behavior. He was investing when markets were high and he was selling when markets were down. So as an advisor, there's opportunity. We have to manage his behavior. As an advisor, we can increase 18.8 to maybe 22, 23. If we are able to make him invest when markets are down and sell when markets are high, the returns can be better. So there's a lot of opportunity. Now the question mark comes, okay, there's an opportunity. Sun liya, sab badhiya hai. Will client pay fees? In fact, someone asked Radhika that how much fees can we charge? So is fees a challenge? Is fees a challenge?
Yes and no. Yes and no.
Yes or no? Challenge and opportunity. How much is the highest fee someone has raised from here in this room? Give me a figure. Tell me a number which you have, your best client, the highest paying fees, who has paid.
No income tax guys in the room.
No, it's all, numbers. Come on, anyone say. Tell me in absolute numbers. 5 lakhs, 16 lakhs, 20 lakhs. Anyone? 20 lakhs. I won't overboast. We charge 45 lakhs from a client in Mumbai. And as Radhika said, the customization. For that client, we manage all his cash flows, all his payments. His son got married. Okay. In Vietnam, we manage that. So you can imagine, what you can do as an advisor, right? So don't worry about the fees. There's not much of time. I'll quickly try to, wrap it up. This is something which I learned last year, a very important philosophy, and this answers your fees question. There's a level of service and the time, okay? This is client expectation. Every year, every time, the client expectation of service goes up. If you're giving him 8% return this year, he'll expect 9. If you give him 12, he'll expect 15. It keeps going up. It's a natural tendency. Dil mange more, right? Now, this is the service provider delivery. Now, what is happening is that the service provider delivery is not coming down. This is the perception of a client, okay? If you keep your service level at the same level, the client will perceive that your service delivery is coming down. That's a human behavior. So you are thinking you're giving the same level of service to your client, but client uski value kam kar raha hai. And there comes a point, inflection point, when he feels the value which he's getting from you is not worth what you're paying. And it creates a question in your mind, yaar, main to itna, I'm giving still that same old service, I'm doing so much for him, and why is he not willing to pay? The question is, the challenge is, earlier there was a positive value for him. If he was paying you 1 lakh, you were delivering him an expected value of 5 lakhs. Now there is a negative value. So a solution is that we need to continuously provide value to our clients. Okay? Try to understand usse kya chahiye, what are the challenges. Try to continuously evolve, give better services. And if you continue to provide better service, he will be paying you the fees. Right? And again, it's easy to say, how do we add the values or the value added services? And how do we know that? Ki kya dena usko naya? So can anyone say what new things needs to be done? How can we learn that? How can we learn that what new services should we offer to the clients? Clients will give you the feedback. Aapko client batayega. Listen to him. If he's complaining, if he's not giving you the fees, suno, kya bol raha hai wo? And as per his demand, give him that service, right? So, value addition services which we are doing at Alpha Capital and which you can also look at. We have been experimenting on various things. I don't have time, otherwise I would have tried to explain each one of them. Financial and goal planning, move him away from the products. SIP, mutual funds, ETF, just move him away. Just tell him, what are his goals and try to bring the focus on that. From micro, move him to macro, okay? And as I said, it's about behavior. It's not about product, what the fund is giving, which fund is 5-star, which is 4-star, kisne kya diya. It's about how much hand-holding we are able to do, right? So behavior management is the key. Global asset allocation. We have been doing a lot of work on this, and we have made our clients invest in US, China, other emerging markets. Clients want that. So you need to build up your expertise on that. A lot of money is going outside India. So we have partnered with firms in Singapore, Dubai. So money going outside India in the form of, LRS. We do that. Overall expense reduction for client. Just go and tell client, ki boss, if your equity mutual fund is charging 2%, let's try to reduce the cost. Let's say in the large cap, let's put the money in the ETF. Wahan 0.2% aap de rahe ho, mere ko 0.5 de dena. It will be still lower for you. And that's the reason why in the US the ETFs have become so popular. ETF has been pushed to the clients in US by RIAs. So take advantage of that. Estate planning, transfer of wealth to the next generation. We have a lawyer in-house, and we have been doing this for all our clients. Taxation service, global taxation. If he needs US taxation, anything, you should be able to provide that. In fact, last year we partnered with EY. So we acquired few startup clients who had a lot of money. So structuring that, trust and all. So through EY we did that. Network effect, trying to create a network effect among your clients. If there is a, someone well connected, connect your clients among them. In fact, there's a whole, network effect is a very big thing. I can talk, whole day on this. All the social network, any large website, Facebook, everything, they work on network effect. business becomes more powerful as more people join in. So, connect your clients, try to help them with each other. And, adopt the technology, faster transactions, everything, yeah. So, we just need wheels to speed. And last, the only thing what you need to focus is you just need to become 5% better than your competitors, right? And it will give you 10x gain. You don't have to be 10x better to get 10x gain. You just need to be slightly better, right? So just improve yourself a little bit and you'll see magic happening, okay? That's about it. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mukesh. That was a very interesting session. So although photography has been democratized, everybody with an iPhone is a photographer. Photography has now become one of the best paid professions, right? Expert photographer. So that's an interesting comparison that you made. May I request B. Srinivasan to come up and hand over, and Shalini Dhawan. B. Srinivasan and Shalini Dhawan to please come up and hand over a little token of our gratitude.
And we have a loud round of applause, please.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Sorry.
Please.